Well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for our virtual alumni workshop. Before we begin, we are going to take a moment to pause so that everyone has a chance to log on. While we wait, feel free to type your name, grad year if you're an alum, and what brought you here today in the chat box, and we will begin in just a moment. Well, my name is Molly Clevin, and I'm from the University of Minnesota Duluth Alumni Relations Team. Today's Alumni Career Workshop is in partnership with the UMD Career Center and will explore whether your work is supporting the life that you want. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be uploaded to our Alumni Relations website. You will receive an email with that link once it is ready. Finally, we will have time at the end of the presentation to answer live questions. To submit a question, use the question and answer button on the bottom of your screen. So now to introduce our guests. Today we are joined by Sue Holm, Career Development Assistant Director, and Sherrill Yeaton, Career Counselor, both from the UMD Career Center. Sue's passion is to serve students by helping them explore majors, careers, and applying to graduate or professional schools. She is a Gallup certified strengths coach and enjoys working with people to discover their strengths. Sherrill enjoys connecting with students in a variety of ways, including resumes, cover letters, personal statements, diversity statements, LinkedIn profile development, and much more. It is now my pleasure to hand it over to Sue and Sherrill.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for our Alumni Career Workshop. Is your work supporting the life you want? The session is designed to allow some time for some thoughtful reflection on this important topic in our busy lives and demands on our time. So you may want to have somewhere near you a piece of scratch paper or your notes app or a doc or somewhere to take some notes as we reflect on some questions. There will also be opportunity to connect for some shared learning through some different questions we'll pose in the chat. So if you are able to respond and comfortable responding to some of the questions in the chat, also we'll be able to see some responses, and there'll be even be a little chat bubble on some of those different slides. So again, I'm Sherrill, as was mentioned by Molly, and work in the Career Center. Outside of work, some of my passions are traveling with my family to dog-friendly locations and creative projects like painting and redesigning furniture and kind of crafty type things. So I'll pass it over to Sue.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here. My name is Sue Holm, and I have been in the Career Center now for, I think, about 12 years. So been fortunate to work with a lot of students, alumni, on trying to figure out work paths or graduate professional school, interview prep, all those kind of fun things. And a couple of things I like to do outside of work are I like to golf, so I'm looking forward to golf season. Hopefully that will happen soon, and also love to travel. I was really super fortunate and got to go to Germany and Austria around at the beginning of December. So that was really a fun trip. So I'll turn it back over to Sherrill.
Yeah, we'll kick things off right away with an opportunity, if you feel comfortable, to share something in the chat. So what's something that brings you joy? Could be in work, outside of work, some of both. But if you feel inclined to share, and also as Molly mentioned earlier, if you weren't quite logged in yet, if you want to share as an alum, when you graduated or where you're at. But yeah, share some things with us if you feel inclined to do so. We'll just give a few seconds for folks to do that. All right, we'll add things as you think of them. And also, as Molly mentioned, add questions to the Q&A that we can come back to at the end as well.
Yeah, so I want to start off by just kind of framing this session today. What we're kind of talking about a little bit is kind of that work-life integration. Sometimes people call it work-life balance, and to be really honest, I don't feel like there's sometimes we can always balance everything, but we want to talk a little bit about work and life and how one supports and interacts with the other. So on the screen here, we have a little bit of our outline or agenda, kind of some of the things that we're going to be going over today, which are priorities and values, some things that bring us career satisfaction, talking a little bit about life alignment, how we align our lives, maybe some career directions, some thoughts on if you're looking to kind of make some adjustments there. And then talking a little bit about barriers or limiting beliefs, because sometimes we can kind of run into some of those as well. And then finally, wrapping up with an action step if you feel like that's something where you're ready to kind of make a step in a different direction. So again, the big question, sort of the overarching framing of this, is really what matters to me most right now. Our lives are constantly changing. Who we were yesterday or last week or last year or 5 years ago is different than who we are today. And our needs change accordingly. Sometimes we have events happen in our lives that really impact our work and what we want to do, and or where we want to be. So our first reflection is really kind of, again, big picture, thinking about our lives right now, and what does a good life look like to me in this season of my life. So when we think about our lives and where we want to be, what does that look like for you today in terms of what are you wanting right now versus maybe 2 years ago, 5 years ago, or 10 years ago? So I'm going to pose a couple questions here. And this is where Sherrill mentioned, if you've got something to write with, or if you want to pull up a document or something like that, we're going to give you a minute or so to start identifying what are some of your priorities right now. Again, our lives are constantly changing. So these are just some examples. For some of us, family issues are really our priority right now, or maybe we're looking for more stability in our careers, or maybe we're looking to grow a little bit. Maybe we have some income requirements that are different now than they were 2 years, 5 years, 10 years ago, or creativity, whatever those things are. I'm going to put a little timer up here. And I'm going to give you 1 minute. I'm going to turn off the thing. I'm going to give you 1 minute to just think about what are your priorities right now? What are your top priorities right now? Again, you can write these down, handwrite them, put them in a Google Doc, share them in the chat, whatever you want. Okay. Anybody
Yeah,
feel
I'll
like
say
that?
we've had some great things popping up in the chat already. I would say predominantly people seem to be wanting to be outside. So
Oh,
everybody must have a little bit of spring fever, but some great things: being outside, kids, gardening, helping others, mentoring, coaching, being physically and mentally healthy. So all kinds of good stuff popping up.
yeah, love that. Also, we only have a short amount of time together today. We've got about an hour together today. So with any of these questions, I also just want to fully acknowledge that some of these might take a little bit more time to think about it. I know that I'm the kind of person that I'm like, you to think about that for a little bit. So feel free to, we're going to be sharing a document that has all of these questions on it with you. So feel free at any point, this weekend or anytime you get a little chance, if you want to reflect on some of these more, you certainly can. But along with our priorities, it really kind of folds into next, which is our values. So priorities and values kind of, go hand in hand a little bit. Sometimes it's helpful to think about what our values are, and that might determine our priorities, or our priorities might be a reflection of our values. So they kind of go hand in hand, kind of two sides of the same coin. So for this next piece, what I want you to do is to think about some of your values and identify maybe 2 or 3 of your top values. What I have on the screen here is just, you can see I grabbed this off SaturdayGift.com website, which I just did a search on values lists, and you can do a Google search on values list. And what I like about this one is it does put it into different categories, because sometimes when we say, oh, what are my values? It's like, are you talking about work? Are you talking about personal life? And for this activity, it can be from any area of your life. If it's more personal to you, or if it's more work values. But I'm going to give you, again, a couple of minutes. You don't have to use values off of this list. This was just an example. If you've got other ones that are in mind, feel free to use those. But again, let's give you 2 minutes on this one, because I feel like values can be a little bit more challenging for us to think about. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and I want you to come up with, what do you feel like are your top 2 or 3 values at this time in your life? Okay. Values are a little bit deeper, right? Like, again, 2 minutes may or may not have been enough time for you to really think about that. So feel free to do that on your own a little bit after this as well. But I'm going to turn it back over to Sherrill. Oh, I think we've got Cheryl's a little frozen here, maybe. Okay, so here's the deal. So I'm going to have you drop in the chat again if you feel comfortable, maybe sharing what 1 or 2 or 3 of your top values are. Feel free to do that in terms of what are some of the things that are coming up for you. Again, values are kind of a deeper level thing. These also are something that change throughout our lives. So when I do this with students, in the beginning. Sometimes students are like, oh gosh, well, here's my values right now, but just know that this is something that can change throughout your lifetime. So as we go forward in life, um, what may have been important to us at an earlier stage in our lives um, is not saying that it's not important now, but things can kind of change a little bit. And I think about it in terms of, like, for example, maybe some of you were really excited and wanted to travel, when you first were working, and then maybe you had kids or had some care that you had to give for elderly people or things like that, and you're like, I don't want to travel as much anymore. So that's where some of those can kind of change throughout our lifetime. Okay, so the next step of this is to really start thinking about, where am I today in terms of my job or career satisfaction? Like, where do I feel like I'm at in terms of that? Maybe I'm super happy, maybe everything is going great, or maybe I just need a few tweaks here. So again, we're going to use a little bit of time. I'm going to give you 2 minutes for this piece as well, because this is a little bit deeper level. And to start thinking about, which parts of our work give us energy, which parts of our work drains us. And then a big question: if nothing changed in my career for 3 years, how would I feel? So welcome back, Sherrill. I'm going to give them 2 minutes. Is there anything you want to add before I start the timer on this piece, Sherrill?
No, go ahead. I can jump in after. We'll give them time to get their thoughts out there.
Okay. All right. So let's do another 2 minutes for this piece. 2 minutes. Okay. So what parts of my work give me energy? What parts drain me? And if nothing changes for 3 years, how would I feel? Okay. I just want to share that this is a really big piece for us to pay attention to. If I could wave a magic wand and give you only jobs that give you tons of energy and you're super excited, that would be great. That's our goal with every job. Now, like some of us, there's certain parts of our job that it's like, yeah, do I really like doing spreadsheets? Do I really like doing those reports? Whatever the case may be. Sometimes maybe you do, but other times it might be like, it's a little bit of give and take. We want to really kind of think about, how can we have a little bit more in terms of what gives us energy in our jobs versus what drains us. If we're at like 80% draining, we need to be thinking about how can we make some changes. So I'm going to turn this next piece over to Sherrill to talk a little bit about this piece.
Yeah, thinking back to some of the things that were popping up for folks, values and things that bring you joy from, family, health, nature, outdoors. We had some values around, compassion, authenticity, hard work, all those kinds of things. Is your work currently supporting how you want your life as a whole to look, work-wise, outside of work? Are you finding that balance? Saw someone mentioned in the chat feeling like, that having their battery drained over time. So just really thinking in what ways is or is not work supporting that life and lifestyle that you want, and are you able to fit those things into all the parts of your life, like kind of fitting those pieces of the puzzle in so that you're feeling energized and refreshed and like you have time for what you want in your life. So jot down some notes, write some ideas of things. In what ways does your work support the life you want to live? What is bringing you that energy? And are there some ways that it gets in the way? And then, how is your physical, your mental energy, your emotional energy impacted by the work that you are currently doing? So take some time to reflect on that. Those are kind of some big questions. So we'll give you some time again to just jot down some notes on those questions there. Anything else that kind of pops up for you?
Okay, so these are deep questions, right? Our lives encompass a lot of different things. And as Sherrill kind of talked about, what we do inside of work can kind of affect our lives outside, and vice versa. So if we're feeling like we don't have that time and energy because we're so drained by our work, that's a place for us to start taking a look at how can we make some changes. One of the big ones we hear a lot is commuting, right? It's like, okay, well, I would really prefer not to work a job where I have to commute for an hour each day because that's 2 hours out of my day. So starting to think of some things like that will help us then determine, do we need to make some tweaks? Is there some things that we might be able to negotiate, or would that lead us to starting to think about making some changes or making a move to something different? So this kind of brings us to the piece of we've had a lot of reflecting on kind of like, what's going on? Where am I happy? What are my values? Those kinds of things. So now we start thinking, okay, well, based on some of that information, is there something that I want to change or tweak with regard to my career direction? Maybe I'm in a great job. I love my job, but maybe I want to see if I can work remotely a day a week or 2 days a week. Or maybe it's I really like what I do, but I'm wanting to do some new projects, something like that. So this next piece is really talking about with regard to your career, whether it's within the position that you have right now or something that you're looking to change to, what are you curious about exploring professionally? Is there some area where you're like, okay, I have been doing this role for X amount of years, and now I really want to move into more of a leadership role or a mentoring role or a manager role, or I want to move to a different part of the company, maybe a different division. Maybe I've been doing stuff with project management, and now I want to maybe move into more sales roles. So, are there new skills you want to develop? Either that might be required of your current position or just things that you're curious about. If so, what might those be? The goal with this is just to, again, not necessarily jump with both feet into something new, but what would better look like? Again, they call it work. It's not called vacation, but what would better in your career look like? Not perfect, but better. So again, for this, let's just give you like a minute to think about this one. I'll give you another minute on our timer to think about what would better look like for you, or what are you curious about exploring professionally? Yeah, feel free to throw anything in the chat in terms of what might better look like for you, or maybe some skills or some things that you might be interested in exploring as well. Okay. I am now going to talk a little bit about barriers or limiting beliefs, because sometimes now when we start thinking about these things start popping into our head. It's the yeah buts. Yeah, that's really nice, Sue, but I can't do that because X, Y, and Z. Or I might have some beliefs that are like, yeah, that's okay for other people, but for me, that's just not realistic, right? So sometimes when these things come up, some of the little negative Nellies start running around in your head in terms of what of barriers or limiting beliefs. So here's a little bit more of a description about those, and some questions to kind of reflect on. If you're feeling, stuck, or that you're kind of in this situation, what's keeping you where you're at right now? Now, this might all be good things, right? It might be like, I love what I do. I get a lot of sense of fulfillment out of it. I feel like I'm contributing to X, Y, and Z. So it could be, either what's keeping you, like holding you back a little bit, or the positive end. And then if it is a barrier or a constraint, what might that be? Or is that just a limiting belief? So, for example, limiting beliefs are things like, yeah, that would be great. I'd love to work in the marketing department, but I'm not creative enough to do that, or I'm not talented enough to do that. Or some examples, again, are real, right? Like I'm really busy. I've got a very, very busy life. So it's really hard for me to explore other options. I'm too busy to do that. Or sometimes we hear this, it's too late for me to change careers, right? Like I'm, you know, 50 years old, I can't change careers. Or there aren't any opportunities at my current position. In my current organization, there aren't any opportunities. Again, all of those might be true, but I just want to kind of start thinking about what might be some barriers or limiting beliefs that you might have with regard to making any changes. So again, I'm going to give you just 1 minute. We're going to do 1 minute on this piece to just kind of pick your brain to see, do you have any of these barriers or limiting beliefs that you're running up against? So hopefully you had a chance to kind of think about that a little bit. Hopefully you don't have too many of those, but it's a reality. Sometimes that can really stop us from making some changes. So I'm going to hand this back over to Sherrill for the chat piece.
Yeah, so the next part is really, how can you kind of move past maybe some of those things that you've been hesitating on, or some of those potential barriers, that have been in the way. Maybe you don't currently have skills in something that maybe you're wanting to do more of. So how do you develop those skills? How do you maybe find opportunities to grow those skills, before you decide to make a move? How do you explore? So if you want to share anything, again, you don't have to. You can just make a note to yourself, but feel free to share in the chat. What is one small thing you could try instead of making a huge change? Maybe it's connecting with a friend who works in another industry to ask them some questions, or picking up a skill, on the side that might be relevant to future career goals, and, either self-taught or, learning something on your own, finding a mentor. Is there something that would help you with whatever your goals or dreams or aspirations might be to move forward in some small way to kind of build momentum then for bigger changes that you might want to make, throughout your career, because, your career develops throughout your whole life. Available trainings, Coursera, you know, LinkedIn Learning, things like that. Maybe even at your current job, there's some professional development opportunities that you can reach out to your supervisor about. Self-taught night school, um, programs for mid-career adults, MBA, lots of things, one-to-one with UMD Career Center. Um, It's mentioned here too that that skills approach to hiring is really about employers seeing that they need these certain skills or these certain qualities, and then how do you match your skills with what they need? So kind of developing skills through any of those outlets, whether it's having a friend, or teach you, or teaching yourself. I mean, getting another volunteer position, or part-time job, or a class, or wherever you can say, here's what you need in this role. Here's how I either have developed it or am developing it. I'm taking this course. I'm preparing myself this way. I'm, you know, shadowing people in the field. I have a mentor. So really, it's just helping you to advance those skills or qualities, or different aspects of your work and life that you want to be using maybe more of as you move forward. advocating, asking to be put on projects, networking, great one. We love networking in big ways or small ways. Networking can mean a lot of things. I think also really networking is just connecting with people. So even if you have a friend, a family member, someone that has already worked in or currently works in a certain industry, I think we forget about how valuable, even just grabbing a cup of coffee with someone, or maybe you stop by to see them at their place of work and you kind of get to see the environment and the vibe. And if that's something that's a fit for you, those are things that, we can do throughout our careers. I think sometimes we associate job shadowing or, learning about someone's career path with, middle school, high school, early college that, oh, I can go and job shadow. But really, there's in big and small ways, there's plenty of ways that you can do that even, well into your career, connecting with someone in the industry, asking someone questions on LinkedIn to really see, is this something that I still see as being something I really want to pursue, kind of the more you learn and helps develop connections and, maybe a mentor, maybe someone that can refer you, to a position if you do decide to make a change. So kind of taking those small steps kind of throughout your career to just, explore your interests and what the potential is. So on that note, some of these already came up in the chat. We really, really appreciate everybody's great ideas and input there. But, there's many ways to take classes, for instance, that was mentioned. Very, small commitment, both financially and time-wise. There could be classes through, your local community education, community center, workforce development centers, taking a class at a college or community college, without diving in with both feet and committing to a whole other, program. Pursuing certifications online at, maybe at your current job, there's something that you can, ask if you could maybe develop, more professionally by earning certifications, going to additional trainings, professional development opportunities. But there's plenty of opportunities outside of work too to pursue those online or through different organizations. Taking time for reflection and mindfulness. Hopefully you found this little bit of quietness and time for reflection during this session to be helpful. So even budgeting time to do that, to check in with yourself or to really reflect on and think about how you're thinking and feeling and maybe things that you need to change. But yeah, a lot of these have been mentioned. We'll talk a little more about ways that you can potentially connect with the Career Center. Really, it's on anything, any topic of interest. How do I balance, work and life? What are the opportunities? What are some resources for seeing, what skills I might need to switch to a different industry? And a lot of that can be helpful in a one-on-one session, because it's very individualized, and that can be virtually, it can be in person if you're in the area. But we can meet with you as alumni. You have full access to our services and are able to meet throughout your career. A big part of that is really developing your documents. If you are looking to make a change, even within your current employer, maybe moving to a different department, or if you're hoping to make a bigger change at this juncture in your life, keeping that resume and cover letter and any other documents up to date. We offer free resume reviews. One thing on that, it's always changing how people are getting their information to the employer with possible job opportunities. And of course, applicant tracking systems are a big part of that process, and how you can best optimize your chances of moving forward, or promotion, whatever you're applying to. One tip that's important to keep in mind is that with applicant tracking systems, they're typically trained to look for things that you've done within your experience sections. So if some of your experience that you've had that's relevant to maybe something you want to do was through a volunteer position or, a organization you're involved with, or as a project that you've worked on somewhere, but really claiming all of that as experience on your resume. So A lot of people will list, of course, jobs as experience, but if you are leading a community organization in your free time and you're using managerial skills and fundraising or whatever it is that you're trying to showcase that you have, people sometimes downplay that and just kind of stick it at the bottom under, activities or community service. But if it's something that's relevant to your goals, actually saying, volunteer experience or management experience, so that folks and of course applicant tracking systems will recognize it more as experience, that it's something that you are actively doing. And that's something that we're happy to look at on an individual basis. You still have access as an alum to Handshake. That is our current platform for pursuing, jobs, internships, potentially volunteer position. Or a lot of career events are listed there, webinars that you could attend, info sessions on different grad or professional schools or that employers are offering. So reach out if you need help accessing that. Probably might have been called something different than Handshake when you were here, but alumni do have access to our current platform and attending events. Come to a career fair, go to a webinar. We also do, I know some of the questions that were submitted prior that we'll get to as we kind of wrap up here in the next couple of minutes, but some folks had questions about seeing what maybe opportunities might be a good fit. And we do, if something like doing career assessments might be of interest, we do have some of those that we offer as well, either ones that you can meet with us about, or some are just on our website that you can take for free, looking at your values and your personality and how maybe that impacts, the career paths that you are choosing or working towards, or things that you're trying to implement more just in your current position. And we do practice things like interviewing and negotiating salary, whether that's at your current job or when you are switching, if you decide that you're going to switch now or in the future. But just some ideas. It's very individualized. So definitely reach out and we can talk through what things might be helpful. And hopefully if you take away even maybe one action step or something that you might want to try, it doesn't even mean you need to do it. Your action step might even be that, I need more time to think about this, but I'm going to set a reminder to myself in a few weeks or in a month to come up with an action step, maybe take some time for reflection. But what is one thing you could do? What is one small step? And then who can support you in that? Is there an accountability buddy? Someone that maybe you can check in with each other and see how things are progressing, or just talk through, different barriers or challenges or things come up as you, try to take that step in a direction that's going towards what you want. And relating to, that conversation you might have to have. We definitely, with our one-on-one meetings too, whatever you're, if you're trying to negotiate something or ask for maybe a different role in your current job, we can definitely talk through that, be a sounding board, kind of talk through that scenario, give you a little practice so you're not doing it, for the first time in the situation with your supervisor. But yeah, kind of leaning on us and, other folks, family, mentors, or whoever might help you to kind of take that step forward, connecting with other people who have recently made a change. And then ultimately, what would be something that could help you, say, within the next year, a little more, kind of take some smaller steps along the way, but what would make the next year feel more meaningful, more aligned, more in line with your values, your priorities, less of your battery drained, more time for fulfilling activities both in and outside of work. We do love a good Post-it in our office. So one way to maybe set some reminders for yourself, kind of post those around, or put some things in your notes app, or maybe some smaller goals. But what's just one doable action step that you hope to take away from today, and kind of what you have thought about throughout all these questions for reflection, or maybe other ideas you've seen popping up that other folks have posted, and try to see if you can maybe come up with one. And if you feel comfortable, you're welcome to share. maybe just to even get it in writing, and then you'll feel like it's more of a commitment, or get ideas from what other people post as far as what their steps are, connect with others. So yeah, throughout the rest of the time, feel free to drop any of those that come up.
Yeah, and just to kind of wrap up here a little bit, again, this is just a big picture question, and for you to kind of think about what is something that you're taking away from today. From we've had a lot of questions that allow you to reflect on different parts of your life and some things that um, give you purpose and meaning, values, all of those kinds of things. These are big questions. They are really big questions. And as Sherrill and I were putting this together, we were talking about, um, when you're applying for jobs, the resume, where do I go for jobs? How do I interview? That's the easy part. Now, it may be a little bit of a challenge, right? We might not have done that for a few years, so we can practice all of those things. But this is really the hard part. It's really thinking about, who am I now? What are some of the things that, now that I've had this experience in my life, what are some of the things that really bring me joy? What do I want to do more of? What do I want to do less of? And then that can kind of help us determine where to even find that good fit. And a lot of this stuff can be a little bit of an identity shift, especially for people who are looking to change careers. If you think about it in terms of, let's say I'm a teacher, right? Like, I went to school to be a teacher. I've taught for X amount of years. I am a teacher. It can be a solid identity, right? But if that's not where you feel like you want to be right now, then here's the conversations that we can have with you, is determining what are the skills that you've developed as a teacher that you might be able to transfer into a different organization. Again, we don't have to do, maybe it's going and being a principal, moving more into administration in your current school district. Maybe it's working for a different school district. Maybe it's doing a lateral move. Maybe it's not that you don't like being a teacher. Maybe you don't want to be a sixth grade teacher. Maybe you want to be an eighth grade teacher. Maybe it is saying, you know what, I don't know that I want to be teaching in a classroom, but I really love developing lesson plans. So maybe I want to work for some kind of an educational service where I'm developing lesson plans, where I'm not in the direct teaching role. So those are all things that we can discuss with you, and or things for you to think about in terms of what you might be taking away from this. Because here's our closing thought, right? It is never too late to reinvent yourself. You can start a new career at 40. You can fall in love at 50. You can learn to dance at 60, start a whole new life at 70. Really stop saying that you can't, right? Dreams don't have an expiration date. So we wanted to give you a little bit of sprinkle, a little magic fairy dust here, and just say, really, your life is your life, right? Like, we want you to enjoy your life, all parts of your life. So how can we, start making some adjustments if you feel like you're stuck or want to do something? And again, those action steps can be something really small. You don't have to, my big saying is, you don't have to boil the ocean, right? Like, what is one thing that you can do to just even explore something, or to have one conversation with someone, or, hey, what's up? I've been thinking I want to move into insurance sales. How do I, let me have a conversation with someone about that and see if that might be a good fit for me. So again, small steps. And again, feel free to connect with us. We would love to meet with you one-on-one. We can kind of work through any of these things with you. I have both Sherrill and Mai's email, our LinkedIn's. You can connect with us on LinkedIn or through the university, and then also reach out to the Career Center. We can do some one-on-one appointments with you if you want to discuss any of these things or anything else further, because we know that it can be challenging and intimidating and a little bit scary sometimes to make some of these changes. So we want to be able to support you in whatever way you might need.
Yeah, and some great ideas popping up in the chat here too, about journaling, tracking emotions and rating, looking for patterns, setting boundaries, giving to yourself when you are not on the job. You give a lot to your job, but kind of finding more things to recharge. So lots of great things.
Yep. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing so that we can do any kind of Q&A or anything that you want to do, Molly.
Great. Well, thank you both for sharing this important reflection. And I think we all are going to walk away with something today. So thank you for guiding us through that. As you mentioned, we are transitioning to taking live questions, and I know we've sort of been doing that throughout the presentation, but there were a handful of questions that were submitted in advance through the registration, and so we'll try to get to some of those. But if you do have other questions, please feel free to use the Q&A box on the bottom of the screen. And so I will just share the question, and Sue and Sherrill will let you decide who will respond. So the first question that came in was kind of curious about LinkedIn and wondering if creating a LinkedIn, if that's something that people still do, and or if there are other platforms that people use. I know there was a suggestion of Upwork or a similar style of platform for seeking out employment.
Mhm.
Yeah, we definitely still use LinkedIn. That's kind of one of our big ones here in the office. It's a great way to stay in touch with folks, to connect. If you meet someone at a networking event, most people are comfortable maybe connecting on that platform. But it could vary by industry. And if you're finding that it's not the most useful tool for you, that certainly is valid too. Whatever is working, whatever sort of platforms work best for you to connect. And it's just a way to kind of track some connections too. Maybe you need to go back and like, oh, who do I know in this industry? And just to get your name out there if you are looking to make any changes. Um, as far as the Upwork for self-employment, I'm not as familiar with that. But if self-employment is something that you're looking at, just putting yourself on those platforms, even adding that you're interested in being self-employed, with your on your LinkedIn profile to connect with people. A friend of mine, when she was starting her business, was going to a lot of vendor fairs and local events. So I was going a lot to support her, and she just made a great network that she totally tapped into as far as like getting advice sharing and getting her business out there. So kind of looking locally too to what opportunities to network or connect with others looking to do the same thing.
Great.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to add, Sue?
I really like LinkedIn, and I think it's an really wonderful platform for a lot of different reasons. I think yes, you can look for jobs on LinkedIn, but you can also look to connect with people. When you meet people places, you can follow them. There are certain groups that you can follow too. So if like I, am involved with Clifton Strengths coaches, and so I have groups there, so you can throw questions in there. I still think that networking, and I know people have differing feelings on that word, but it's a great way to explore opportunities, and it's a great way to get hired because again, you can find out information. LinkedIn, you can do a little bit of sleuthing. You can put in job titles and see how people got to where they are. So if you want to be whatever you want to be, put that job title in there, and then you can kind of pull up people's profiles to see maybe what how they've gotten there. We also have a fabulous alumni feature. So if we go to University of Minnesota Duluth page, we can pull up the alumni. You can sort by industry, you can sort by major, you can sort by city and state. A great way to connect with people and reach out to have some of those informational interviews too.
Great. Thank you for that plug.
Yeah, yeah, it's great.
Another question, and I know it was kind of answered during your session, but this person is wondering about different strategies or tactics to exploring new roles within a current employer that's maybe within a different department.
Yep. I mean, some companies and organizations really encourage that. I mean, they might be more open than you think. Some do really encourage people to grow and develop, and they want to retain folks too. If maybe being able to try something else is going to, keep you there and motivate you and get you excited about it. If it's something you're comfortable doing, just kind of bringing up that conversation, with a current supervisor. And like I said, we can practice that also if you want to just set up on a meeting and kind of come up with your ideas. I mean, some people can be very casual and organic. Some people write up like, kind of here's my goals and here's how I could see achieving them, or here's the skills that I'm not using as much as I might like to, how might I be able to integrate those more? Here's some skills I have. Here's where I've developed them. Here's other times when I've navigated a change and been able to adapt to a new role or a new situation, and I've been successful at it. So I think that I could do that here also. So there's lots of approaches. So whatever way you feel most comfortable approaching that. I mean, you can go in with notes and kind of some of your points that you want to bring up, or it can be more casual. But definitely reach out to just even talk through it with us. We meet with folks about that kind of thing all the time.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly nuanced. It depends on the organization and it depends on your relationship with whoever it is that you want to have that conversation with. But we could definitely talk a little bit more about that one-on-one.
Perfect. So this question is curious kind of how you might advise people to navigate the current job market, knowing that things are shifting, job openings and hirings have declined significantly in 2025. How are you feeling about the job market, and do you have any advice for those that are looking to maybe make a switch in their career?
Mhm. You want me to start, Cheryl?
Either way, go ahead if you want.
Okay. I'll jump in and then feel free to add. Um, so things have been a little volatile, right, in 2025 and rolling into 2026. That being said, it depends on the industry. It depends on the roles that you're looking for. It depends on the industry. What we're finding is it's taking a little bit longer for people to find positions, again, depending on what they're going into. AI has been a big disruptor. I think we're still seeing the effects of that and what that might do. It has caused some organizations to downsize because they were able to use AI more. Um, so yes, we're seeing some disruptors, and if I had a crystal ball, I would love to be able to, see into the future and see where we would be a year from now. But I still think there's jobs out there. I still think that again, networking is a great way to learn about those opportunities. Skill development, again, depending on what it is that you are currently in and what you're looking to do. Maybe that's another way for us to kind of approach that in terms of, is there something that you want to be doing that you're not in right now? And then it's like, what's the gap? Like, where are you now? Where do you want to be? What's the gap? And how do we get from point A to point B? Those are all conversations we can have. So feel free to add to that, Cheryl.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely still jobs, still hiring. Like Sue said, it really varies by industry. And really, I think most recently, but we do monitor it regularly because it has been a little, up and down, kind of a little bumpy. But I think most recently that they say that, if anything, the hiring is just sort of flat. I mean, we always like people love to hear like, oh, hiring's really up because that gives people a really positive, like, oh, great, but again, that doesn't also mean that that's maybe the industry or the job you're wanting. So kind of digging a little deeper, but a slight increase or kind of staying where things are at are sort of what we've been seeing lately a little bit with some of our professional organizations. But that being said, there are opportunities out there, and the more you can position yourself and prepare yourself for them, then you can get a good step in the right direction as those opportunities do come up. And maybe it's revising the resume and connecting with some people in the field and just kind of positioning yourself as well as you can to be, one of the people that is being considered for that change, because there are still postings and there are still things popping up.
Well, and I think just we're nearing the end of our session here. I have one more question. So both of you walked through several self-reflective questions for us to respond to. And knowing that the two of you have been at the university for several years, I'm just wondering how each of you continue to find joy within your work.
Ooh, that's a good question, Molly. I love that.
Um, we are, I will say, not to speak for both of us here on one point, but we are fortunate that we do have a supervisor and a department that support us being able to grow and develop in our own positions. So if we wanted to, like make a change or do more of something, we can make some of those adjustments at any given moment. I mean, my role, I've been here since 2008, has evolved over the years, and I've been able to work in areas that, maybe at that time or just something that, I wanted to focus on more, and then kind of can be adaptable. So we are fortunate in that, and perhaps other folks that might work too, but they just haven't, asked, or maybe, approached someone about it. I do still find at the end of the day, for me, as long as I am connecting with students and alumni, that energizes me at the end of the day. So it means I have to get through some paperwork or things to do it. That's fine, but that still is a high value for me, along with family, health, stability, things like that, is just really giving back, helping, connecting with the community. So the fact that I can do that in work, and then also it's kind of one of my hobbies too, a little bit outside in the community. But those things really energize me.
Yeah. And I would say the same. When I do those value sorts, helping people is like my number one value. And I love what I do. I love being able to interact with people, and because it's, like some of the things that, career stuff is not easy. It's not easy, whether that's a student trying to figure out what they want to do, or somebody who's like, I need to make a change. I'm not sure how do I do this. So being able to help people navigate that is something that I really love. And that, yeah, like Sherrill said, that gives me energy. So love that.
Well, one thing I'm trying to stop doing, because I catch myself doing this all the time, and a lot of us do, is just talking about how busy I am. Because
Oh,
if it's things you like doing, because I mean, work is busy, family is busy. I'm still running my kids all around to all their activities and practices and things, but I'm trying to change my verbiage where my response isn't to like, how are you or what's new, isn't I'm so busy. So, and just embracing the moments a little bit more, and knowing that, busy can be good too.
Mm, very good. Well, thank you both just so much for taking the time. And as you mentioned, if you have questions that weren't answered today, both Sue and Sherrill offered their time, and you're welcome to schedule a meeting with them. And of course, we live in the virtual world too. So even if you're not local, living in Duluth, they are able to meet with you virtually as well, which is great. So I will make sure to include their emails in some follow-up communication following this session as well. So with that, just again, thank you all for joining us, and I hope to see you at future alumni events. Thank you and have a great day.
thanks, Molly.
Thanks for coming.